It's exactly 8:30 a.m. News and views right here on Salam Media. Next on a line, we have Matthew Parks. He is from COSATU, and we are going to talk about the supposed call for a national shutdown this Friday, the 10th of June. And South Africa's two biggest taxi associations, Santaco and NTA, are supposedly lobbying for COSATU to join in on the national shutdown. All of this over fuel costs. Matthew Parks, a very good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you on the show. And is this in fact going ahead or not? Because I'm now hearing that Santaco is saying that they're not going ahead with this national shutdown. What's your position as COSATU, and how do you view this supposed shutdown on Friday?
Well, as far as we know, it's not happening. When I listened to Santaka and we met with them, well, briefly telephonically, they indicate they are still to meet. They must still make a decision as Santaka whether or not they want to make this call. Only then would they then approach COSATU and other civil society organizations to support them. So they haven't approached us yet. As far as we know, they haven't even made that decision yet. But I think, look, when they do, we would have to go to our unions because COSATU is a federation of independent trade unions, which organize across the economy. We'd have to get a mandate from them. We have to get a mandate from the workers in those unions. So going to strike is not something we just wake up one morning and do. There are legal requirements. We must ballot members. We must submit notices to government. It takes a bit of time. But look, those are logistics. I think what we want to say is that we appreciate their call, which is that something must be done around the fuel price regime because it's bleeding workers. Workers spend more than a quarter of their salary on getting to work. This is going to make it more difficult. It's going to make food and other goods more expensive. It's going to make electricity more expensive. It's going to hit the economy. It's going to make it difficult for many companies to hire more workers, to pay workers. So I think we support the call that something must be done. And I think for us, that's a critical thing to put pressure on government. Let's have the discussion. Let's see what can be done to give relief to workers and to the economy.
And obviously, a further blow to the unemployment situation here in South Africa with these rising fuel prices. Government has been saying that it's going to be costing the fiscus over R1 billion to defer these price hikes in fuel. What do you believe as COSATU could be the answer to this very dire situation we find ourselves in? And let me also stress that it's not only in South Africa that we're seeing these massive fuel hikes. I know the UK is in a similar situation, and other countries around the world.
Yeah, look, I mean, the current hike is because of the war in Ukraine. The international oil prices skyrocketing. We saw a similar thing about 20 years ago when the US invaded Iraq. Oil prices also reached about $120 per barrel. And obviously, we import oil, so we're at a unique disadvantage. So there's not much we can do about Ukraine. South Africa got no power in that regard.
Obviously.
But there are some things we can try to do to mitigate the impact upon South Africans. We think one is that let's review the current tax regime for the fuel price because about a third of our petrol price goes towards to taxes or the fuel levy. So about 8 rand of every liter. That's where the government has been able to give some relief, as you said now, for the past 2 months, or it's now the 3 months. We think there's a critical need to get metro rail lines back working because that helps 10 million commuters in our cities to get out of cars, to get into trains, and thus less exposed to the fuel price hikes. Let's also look at more investment in public transport, buses and taxis, give them support. Again, because less people are dependent upon private cars, on petrol, the less exposed we are. We think there's also a need for government to retable the road accident fund and RAPS bills at Parliament, because those sought to get the RAF back into a financial sound trajectory. The RAF right now is a cesspool of mismanagement and corruption. It has liabilities of about 400 billion rand. About 3 rand a litre of our petrol price goes to subsidize the RAF. So if we can fix it, and that won't happen overnight, it lessens the pressure upon the on the petrol price. But look, those are short and medium term and long term interventions. We think there's a need for government, as the Minister of Finance was saying, to deregulate the fuel price as well. Currently, diesel, for example, petrol stations can offer different prices for diesel to help bring a bit of competition. Normally, diesel's cheaper than petrol, but currently not. But I think that's something also we should be looking at. So it's a variety of measures. Longer term thing, Julie, is that we're always going to be at risk to what's happening in the rest of the world. There's always going to be some drama in the Middle East. Oil prices are going to shoot through the sky. Someone's going to be invaded in Afghanistan. Whatever, the world is a crazy place.
Yeah,
But
it
but what
certainly is a crazy place. I want to go back to three of the points that you've made. You talk about the metro lines. We know they're in a shocking situation, and for government to reintroduce metro lines working again is going to be a long-term strategy, and it's going to cost a lot of money. But it needs to happen, obviously. We also know that if buses are introduced as an alternative uh, public transport, again, taxis are going to be striking against that issue. They are going to say that government's taking bread out of their mouths. So I think that needs to be approached in a very sensitive manner. Some sort of partnership would need to be entered into to prevent further ongoing strikes as far as the taxi industry is concerned. The Road Accident Fund, we know, is bankrupt as you and I speak, and we're hoping that the powers that be are probably trying to clean it out and clear it of all of the corruption. Last but not least, deregulation. We've been told that that's not the way to go because you're going to find a heavy monopolies operating in that space. So I've given back to you the 4 points you've made. How do you respond to those?
Yeah. Look, the point is to have a discussion. So let's put all the options on the table. Some may make sense, some may not be practical, some may take time. There might be alternatives that we haven't thought of as well. But I think the more ideas we have, the more likely we are to find solutions. But what is clear right now is that the current scenario is not sustainable. It's 23 Rand a litre for petrol, for diesel. When the current 1.50 Rand tax relief is removed in a month or 2 months' time, we're going to see 25 Rand. That's more than the minimum wage just for an hour. So that's not affordable for workers, not affordable for companies, not affordable for the economy. It's not affordable even for Eskom when they have to use diesel during load shedding. So something must be done. So I think the more ideas we have, be it from COSATU, be it from business, be it from government, society, the better. Some of them might only be able to tweak here and there. And so we do appreciate that if you do reduce the taxes, you are creating a gap in the fiscus. You need to either plug that or find a way to reduce expenditure. So there are different things you have to look at. One thing could be that you simply say, well, we'll reduce the taxes. That's an easy administrative thing for government to do, if to effect. But then you need to plug 100 billion Rand in the fiscus. One way to resolve that is to say, okay, let's give 10 billion Rand to SARS, because SARS is, if you invest 10 billion Rand, they'll give you 100 billion Rand in additional revenues because they'll be capacitated to employ more staff to go after people who don't pay their taxes, be it a VAT, company tax, or income tax. So we need to look at a variety of options. It might have to be, like with any other crisis, half a dozen different options. But some of them are short term, like tax relief. Some are medium term, like getting Metro Rail back online. And we have to do it because even for other reasons, even besides the fuel price, we can't afford to have roads being overly congested, etc. We need to get transit also back fully operational because it helps to get agricultural goods off of trucks into trains. But you're right. I mean, they're always a catch-22. So I think in Cape Town, what they try to do with the My City shuttles is to say, can the taxi operators, for example, be a stakeholder in the My City bus service? So they have an interest. So there's not necessarily a cutthroat competition. And the taxis would be right to say that they also need support because we subsidize buses and trains. Taxis go to every township and every village across the country, every new area.
Mhm.
We should be giving support to because they are the backbone of public transport.
Matthew Parks, wonderful talking to you. And I like what you've put out there. I sincerely hope and pray that COSATU starts engaging with Santaco and NTA and other government departments in bringing these suggestions to fruition because it's long overdue, very especially Metro Rail and public transport, not only via taxi, but a partnership with taxis and buses. Thank you for your time. Go well. And just finally, does that mean that the shutdown's not going to happen on Friday? Or is it too soon to say?
I was on mute. So look, as far as workers said, it wouldn't happen. So I mean, just for trade unions to go on strike, It's not an overnight operation. We have to get a mandate from our members. They have to ballot. We have to submit a certificate to the employer, to government, because to protect workers when they go on strike, to protect them from being dismissed and so forth. So from our side, Friday is 2 days away. Wouldn't be physically possible. Doesn't mean we don't want to have this discussion, you know. And I think the fact we're having
Mm.
this discussion is what's critical, to keep it on the spotlight and keep the pressure on government that we need to do something, and something quickly.
Thank you. Thank you indeed for your thoughts, and go well. That was Matthew Parks. He is from obviously COSATU, talking to us about the supposed national shutdown on Friday. Seems at this point in time it's not going to go ahead. But we're also going to be hearing from Fritz from Santaco and see what his thoughts are on this matter. Please stay with us.